What's going on, guys? Hopefully you guys are doing well, safe and sound, away from all this craziness in our world right now. And we're going to talk about something today that needs to be talked about, and it's actually going to kind of make my point a little bit about some things that I was talking about in a previous video, which was old school meets new school, and how blending those together, I think, are really the future of supplementation, as opposed to trying to find these new compounds that have data behind it, but doesn't actually back it up with real world results. And we're going to talk about something today, and there's going to be a story that goes along with this. So it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but I want you guys to understand that I really do understand this stuff and how it works. And it's not something that I've read. This is years and decades of experience. This is 30 years or 32 years of 32 or 33 years as of this year that I've been in the gym training, dieting, competing, using supplements, working at different supplement stores, owning my own businesses. Like, I've done it all from the very first day into the gym all the way up to owning my own supplement company. So today we're going to talk about one of the ingredients in T2G. Now, T2G is the product that one of the products, because all of our products are pretty much like this, that blend old school with new school. Now, Jerry, what are we talking about here? So there's 3 ingredients in T2G. There's suma root, shilajit, and cordyceps. Now, we're going to focus on suma root today because I guarantee that you have not heard of suma root, but you've heard of one of the ingredients in suma root that has a ton of data and real world experience and practical application to back it up, but you don't realize that it's in there because of how things have been presented. So bear with me. Today we're going to talk about a product called, or a plant called the Fifia Paniculata. Now, I had the hardest time saying this back in the day. What is the Fifia Paniculata? Check this out. I was 17 years old. I went away to school in college in Fort Lauderdale, and there was a magazine that I was looking at, and in the back of, or in one of the ads of the magazines, there was an ad for something called the Russian Secret. Wasn't aware what it was, didn't know too much about it, read everything that was in the ad, and of course the ads are basically meant to sell you the product. I bought the product. I had to fill out the check, send the check in, wait 8 to 10 weeks to get it back. It wasn't like we are nowadays. We just order it online, it's in your house by like that night or the next day. Like 12 weeks later, this thing finally shows up on my doorstep. And I start taking it, and I notice that my strength is going up, and I look a little fuller, and it was pretty quick. I'd say within the first 2 weeks. And I only bought a month's worth because I wanted to try it out, and it was like $50 or something. And back then, 17 years old, $50 for a month. I mean, it was steep, but this product was something that, piqued my interest because of the things that it said and what data it had to back it up, and the things that I researched at the time, which we didn't have the internet. I had to actually go around and ask people and go to the library, and I had to do a lot of actual research, which was a giant pain in the ass. But the Fifia Paniculata, the Russian Secret. So this Russian Secret, which at the time, this was what was written on the label, Fifia Paniculata. Now, I didn't understand what the fuck that was. I understand now it's they're Latin words, Latin pronunciation, but I didn't know what the fuck that was. To me, it was very exotic, right? Okay, now, I can't really afford that for more than a month, so I used it that one time. I'm not really sure any other products in the market that had it. It was just this one single product. Fine. Now, fast forward, I move back home, and I'm working at a place called Daniel Chapter 1, World Sports Nutrition, and I'm learning the different herbs, because there was a naturopath that worked there, and they had different herbs and vitamins and all kinds of different compounds and things. Like, I wanted to learn these things from the bottom up. So I would literally, when the store was slow, I would just take something off the shelf, and I would read what it was, and there was like this book, like Natural Healing, and I would look everything up in that book, and I'd learn about the different products. And I picked something up off the shelf that said suma root. Okay? Suma root. So I was like, I take the bottle off the shelf, and when I turn it around, it says Fifia Paniculata on it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now, this is like a couple of years after I had used the Russian Secret. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's the stuff that was in the Russian Secret. So I asked Jim, the owner, I said, hey, what's up with this suma root? And he starts explaining to me, it's an adaptogen, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, what do you guys use it for? And he's like, well, for health, for this, tonics for that. It's called the Brazilian Ginseng, it's called, it has a nickname, et cetera, et cetera. It's got a lot of different properties, right? Now, the only property, sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye. The only property that I was interested in at the time was, could I get bigger? Could it make me more muscular? That was it. Could I put on muscle with it? Now, here's the thing. These 2 things I knew suma root would work because it was Fifia Paniculata. That was the Latin name. This was just the given name for people that are not into science. Suma root, right? But what really was interesting is I was using this suma root, right? And this back in 1993, okay? 1993 is when I started using the Fifia Paniculata, and through 94, I was using the suma root from Daniel Chapter 1. Now, lo and behold, there comes a product years later, okay, years later, called beta-ecdysterone. Beta-ecdysterone. That you may have heard of. There were 17 beta-ecdysterone, but this was like a plant steroid, right? Guess what? Beta-ecdysterone comes from sumaroot. It's one of the things that's contained in sumaroot, which the Latin name is Fifia Paniculata. So this supplement that became popular years later, that has a whole bunch of data behind it, and has been used for hundreds of years, was actually in sumaroot. Nobody knew about it, right? Nobody had a clue. And the Fifia Paniculata was being marketed as a Russian secret. Now, what is so special about this is just one aspect of what's in sumaroot. Now, this failed miserably. People started taking that, it failed miserably. So why was sumaroot so successful, right? And Fifia Paniculata so successful, but why, which they thought the main ingredient, beta-ecdysterone, which does increase protein synthesis in mammals, in humans, why did it fail as a sports supplement? I'm gonna give you guys the whole rundown right now. So I printed some stuff out so that you guys, I can get a gist of what the stuff really is. So Fifia Paniculata, origin is South America. Parts used are the root, sumaroot, or the vine. Native to South America. It's a potent herb. It's nicknamed the paratota, translating for all things. So sumaroot can be used for all things. Muscle growth, probably one of those things, right? So it's an adaptogen. It's known as Brazilian ginseng, which is rich in B-ecdysterone and ecdysteroid glycosides, natural compounds that are partly responsible for its adaptogenic action. No, again, we're talking about the Fifia Paniculata. We're not talking about, just the beta-ecdysterone. So it's saying beta-ecdysterone and ecdysteroid are natural compounds that are partly responsible for the adaptive response of sumaroot. So just by reading that statement alone makes you go, this is only one of the things that makes this work. So if you're only taking this, you're shorting yourself because you need the other things that's in the sumaroot. It's not just one ingredient. So it actually says it right inside this data and stuff on how this kind of works, right? It says it's an herbal adaptogen, increases the body's resistance to stress, and weight training is a form of stress, balances the endocrine system, right? So it has a normalizing effect on the body. So if it says suma helps balance cortisol levels, the stress hormone in the body. If they're too high, it'll bring it down. If they're too low, it'll bring it up. This is how powerful this adaptogen is for balancing the endocrine system. So check it out. It brings your hormones back to healthy levels. Now that's not even the protein synthesis, right? That's not even the muscle gaining part of it. It helps balance your hormones. Now, there's another product called Humana Forte that does that really well, but beta-ecdysterone sumaroot does that as well. Dubbed the Russian secret, it was credited with the Russians' dominance in the Olympics in the 1970s, right? So here's something really interesting, and this is where the first data started to come. So we know that Dianabol was created by Ciba Lab in Germany. However, the Russians were using different steroids before Dianabol was actually created. So the Russians were already onto something. Now, how did they wind up understanding that these steroids worked, whereas everybody else didn't really have a clue yet? Check this out. So in the 1970s, they had secretly been studying herbs and discovered that sumaroot enhanced testosterone production, promoting the development of muscle mass and increasing stamina. Additionally, its adaptogenic qualities help the body to recover faster from intense exercise. To appear to be derived from the phytochemical beta-ecdysterone, a powerful phytosteroid that helps to build muscle without negative side effects. So the beta-ecdysterone is just part of the muscle building effect, right? The other things in the sumaroot help normalize your hormones, which gives it like a 1-2 punch to help your body actually adapt and gain new muscle, right? Boosts your immune system, helps with sexual health. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff on this. And I wanted to print this stuff out because I wanted to make sure that it said the things exactly how scientifically they're written. So if you wanted to look this stuff up, you guys can find this stuff yourself. So sumaroot is made up of fifiacic phytosterols, mainly beta-ecdysterone, and fafiosides, saponins. Beta-ecdysterone is a plant steroid hormone found to enhance protein biosynthesis and other anabolic activities in humans and animals. Beta-ecdysterone has been linked with muscle gain. In addition, beta-ecdysterone has shown to be analgesic and anti-diabetic activities in humans. Research also found that later trace elements such as germanium, allantoin, and various vitamins and minerals and amino acids are also in the sumaroot. So they explain there's many things inside of this root that help your body normalize, be healthy, stabilize your hormones, and help you gain muscle. So check that out. That's all just in the sumaroot. That's only one aspect of what's in here. That would be a product that you want to take alone, right? Bear with me, hang on. So here we got the Russian secret for muscle gain. This goes into a little bit deeper into, what was happening right now. So let's see, let's jump into here. The World Doping Agency asked scientists to investigate ecdysterone. The agency is a group that tries to keep athletes from an unfair advantage by using performance-enhancing drugs. It's a natural phytosteroid similar to structure to testosterone, but it is not a drug. It is a natural compound. A double-blinded study looked at the effects of sumaroot. It was published in the Journal of Archives of Toxicology. They got a placebo. None of the subjects knew what they were taking. After 10 weeks, the Suma group had significantly higher increase in muscle strength. Now, with strength comes mass, right? First, anybody that's ever taken steroids knows that. You take the steroids, you get stronger first, and the muscle mass follows, right? So they saw a very similar effect. Now, here's the thing. Before steroids were being used for research, right, for athletes in Russia, they were looking at any compounds because they weren't aware of steroids yet. Those drugs weren't on their radar yet. They were looking at any compounds that were natural. And sumaroot happened to be the one that they got the best results with, or Fifia Paniculata is what they call it, but I'm sure in Russian it sounds completely different than that. But it wasn't just beta-ecdysterone. But what happened was many of these supplement companies, it's actually cheaper to make the beta-ecdysterone, actually, to be totally honest with you. But what they do is they said, hey, this is the main ingredient, right? That causes muscle protein synthesis. But they weren't looking at all the other aspects that stabilize hormones and help your body adapt to stress, right? Weight training is a form of stress. Your body adapting to that stress on top of the testosterone boost and the muscle building, muscle protein synthesis being activated from the beta-ecdysterone, all of that and the sumaroot together works together to create a product that works. And not only do they have data behind it, but this root has been used for hundreds of years all over the world for tonics, for adaptations, for health, to normalize hormones. It has enough real-time practical application in real life to back up this root. It's unbelievable. Now, I stumbled upon it back in 1993, right? So what happened was eventually creatine came out, which is great. We had boron, we had Smilax, we had dibengazide, we had those things that didn't work, didn't do anything. Well, what happened to the Fifia Paniculata, right? Well, that was something that we didn't even know about. All this other stuff was coming around. This had been around for fucking generations, and we still didn't even know anything about it. Then all of a sudden, when somebody grabbed a hold of the beta-ecdysterone and figured we can market that, look at that. Sumaroot, that looks very like crunchy granola, it looks like kind of hippie. I don't know how we can market that. This thing's gonna confuse people. We can't market that. You just can't say it most of the time. Beta-ecdysterone looks like a drug. That looks like a drug name. That looks like something we can put on a label, on a box, on a bottle, and people would be like, oh, what's that? And they would be like 17 beta-ecdysterone. Hey, there was all these different types that they wound up isolating and putting on the market. However, these without the rest of the things in sumaroot didn't pan out because all of the studies, all of the data, all the people using any form of beta-ecdysterone before those new supplements came out where they isolated it were using sumaroot and got the overall synergy of what was happening in that product. Now, that brings me to how does old school meet new school? Now, the other products that are ingredients that are in T2G are old school too. Shilajit, used for thousands of years for many things, right? Cordyceps, hundreds of years, right? Different mushrooms, tons. But nobody ever thought of combining them in a single product. I said, if we have products that are so well versed over so much time and have so much data behind it and so much real world results, why hasn't anybody thought about stacking these together? And that's how T2G was born. I said, I need to find out which ones, when stacked together, have a synergy. And when you put them together, they work together and not just jam stuff together and hope to see what works. And that's where the study started, or I should say the research started. The research started. That's where the beta testing started. That's where I figured out new school means stacking, right? We know that from different steroids. They stack different products, right? Cycling and stacking, right? Well, I figured if we can stack the ingredients inside one product, we have a home run product. And that is what's in T2G. So you guys understand, like T2G is not a product that I made up on the fly. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I just kind of threw some things together. This has been in the works since 1993. Since I took that product when I was 17, I had been looking for it and couldn't find it and stumbled upon the sumaroot years later. And years after that, people caught on with sumaroot and it was amazing. And they started isolating it, making it something sexy, and then all of a sudden it no longer worked. So this product has been, since 1993, it's been in the works. And I figured out a way that at real time right now to try to make it as strong as possible and work as best possible. So hopefully you guys understand, new school meets old school, that's where we're at. And I do believe that is the future of supplementation. Check all this stuff out, Google these words. There's a lot of data behind it. Thank you guys for listening, I appreciate it. I'm BioStreet and I approve this message. T2G is where it's at, and we're out.